Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, the United Nations has issued more than 10 conventions and protocols to protect women against discrimination. In the complex society of India, divided as it is into religions, castes and classes, women's rights have often been ignored. Kerala, in the south of the country, is one of the most progressive states in India. Here, female literacy is much higher than in the rest of India. The per capita income of Kerala women is also the highest in the country. All statistics show that women in Kerala are comparatively well off, compared to the majority of Indian women perhaps, but compared to men, almost all unskilled traditional work is done by women. For an 8 or 9 hour day, usually under very unhealthy conditions, they receive the wage of $1. And in addition to this poorly paid labor, they are supposed to carry out many hours of household work.
There are more and more groups which are forming.
Expert in women's studies in India and the West, Mrs. Vanitha, states the basic problems.
In India, you see the question of food, housing and clothing is a very big issue because more than half of the population live below the poverty line. But in the West, you see, by and large, most of these needs have been met. And for women, it means a very long, arduous day, stretching about more than 16 hours. And the associated problems of poverty which they have to mostly bear because they're most involved in the survival tasks of the family.
The International Labour Organization in Geneva long ago adopted the norm of equal pay for equal work. But throughout the world, women are still discriminated against in this respect. In India, women receive 25% less pay than men for the same work. Along with the household work, which is borne almost completely by women, this prompts many to characterize the situation of women as one of double oppression. Oppression by men and by society.
Another issue is that of the concept of autonomy and individualism, which is very strong in the West. In India, such a concept is unthinkable of, except maybe some individual conscious women striving for it. Because in India, the family life and the relationship with your partners and with your large family is so strong that a woman can't think of really herself all the time.
കോപ്പ് മാത്രമേ ഉള്ളൂ.
Your husband is your God. This concept is drilled into Indian women from early childhood. It dictates, for example, that a woman does not call her husband by name and that she does not eat before he has been fully served. Even for educated and unemployed middle-class women, this principle must remain without dispute, but often not without creating psychic problems. Dr. Ramesh, psychiatrist.
The female patients coming to me mainly are from the middle class. During the last 25 years, out of economic reasons, our women also were forced to take up jobs outside. And it creates certain problems for them at work. When they come back home, they have to do all the household work, manage the children, and do all the cooking, for which they receive no help from their husbands. So, instead of gaining them some economic independence, they are overburdened by the job. This creates certain psychosomatic symptoms for which they come to me for help. This is especially significant in the case of teachers who have to play dual roles, one at school by enforcing a certain amount of discipline, and another while at home when they are expected to be submissive.
The Indian Constitution is largely based on the principles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex. But this has had little impact on the majority of Indian women. More than constitutional rights, religion and social traditions still determine the position of women. A prominent leader of the Hindu front, Professor Matthew.
Nastri Swatantramarhade. This dictum is alleged to have been taken from Manusmriti, the ancient time-honored Hindu code of India. Literally, it means that women do not deserve any freedom. But this dictum is misinterpreted many times to denigrate the culture of India and to establish that Indian society never granted any freedom to women. But I feel that this is a biased view. The reason for my contention is that this particular dictum is culled out of a shloka, which in toto conveys the idea that women do not or need not claim to have any freedom, as they are protected in their childhood by their fathers, during their married life by their husbands, and during their old age by their sons. As such, they were not deemed to be a separate entity.
The main religious communities in India have their own civil codes, which are often in clear contradiction to the rights stated in the Constitution. But the power of religious leaders makes any change hazardous. Islamic law permits a man to divorce his wives without providing due reason or compensation. Under Christian law, daughters, unlike sons, are not entitled to share in the family property. In most of India's religions, the woman is traditionally worshipped as a mother figure. The ancient Hindu cult of the mother goddess still is an influence on a large part of the population.
During the state of possession syndrome, most women tend to take up the role of the all-powerful mother goddess. When, due to the social and economic pressures, they reach a state of high tension, the normal mechanisms of repression fails, and the intrapsychic conflict reaches such a high that they tend to dissociate into another form, which happens to be more often the form of the all-powerful mother goddess.
Street theatre is widely used to make people aware of all kinds of social injustice. Here, we see an enactment of the brief meeting of a boy and girl as part of a marriage proposal.
Now it is time for the auction. Those who are interested in this object may please come forward. Come out, my daughter. Let the boy see you once. Well, what will you give? 10,000 rupees, 5 sovereigns of gold and expenses. Only 10,000 rupees and 5 sovereigns? My son is a graduate. With this small offer, it is as if you are making fun of us. Come, boy, let's go.
In India, most of the marriages are arranged. And in arranged marriages, payment of dowry has become almost a ritual. So much so that if you go and see an engagement party in India, you will find that the girl's father actually pays out or hands out a check or the equivalent amount of money to the bridegroom's father. So it is almost a ritual.
A representative of a feminist group in Kerala explains the traditions which are still formative in Indian marriages today.
Such an integral part that it has become almost a ritual.
Mrs. Sumangala.
In arranged marriages, the individual is the one who is least considered. Both of the individuals are not considered at all. But other factors like religion or the caste or subcaste or subsect, all these factors are considered. Even the horoscope or the auspicious star under which the girl is born, these things are considered. But the girl herself is not considered. The boy and the girl, even in progressive families, the time that they are given to converse or talk is just 10 minutes. By this 10-minute conversation, they are supposed to know each other.
As girls are regarded as a burden on the family budget, parents try to marry them off as soon as possible, paying a compensation to the groom's family in the form of a dowry.
Kerala is supposed to be the most literate state in India, where 66% of women are educated. Even in such a state, dowry deaths has become quite common. For example, just last year in Palghat district alone, 20 dowry deaths occurred. We took up a case in Mundur where a girl was actually strangled to death for just half a sovereign of gold. The girl's mother promised 4 sovereigns, and actually when the gold was weighed up, it was only 3.5 sovereigns. And on the question of this half a sovereign of gold, the girl had to endure untold miseries throughout her life, throughout her short life, because when she had the second child, she was actually strangled to death for not bringing the half additional sovereign. So such things are quite common now. Many of the feminist groups in Kerala have decided to fight against this evil. Actually, not feminist groups in Kerala, all over India, several feminist groups have taken up the fight against dowry. And we have also observed last year, January 10th, the Human Rights Day, as Anti-Dowry Day.
Family planning is another issue in which women's rights are at stake. A physician and activist in the popular science movement in Kerala is Dr. Iqbal.
In the field of health, a dominant male sexism and female discrimination is very obviously seen. In fact, this happens from the womb and seen right up to the higher institutions of medical care. In the field of family welfare activities also, there is a female discrimination and male sexism, which is very obvious. Take, for example, a procedure like vasectomy, which is a contraceptive procedure which is used in males. This is a very safe procedure. There are no health hazards. It can be done with minimum health problems. The male adults, they think that if they do vasectomy, their virility may be affected. This has got no scientific validity. But instead of this, the government as well as the medical profession now promote tubectomies in females. A tubectomy can lead to a lot of complications. In fact, it can even cause death of a patient. And another very serious thing that is happening in the family welfare department is the use of long-acting contraceptives, which are banned in Western countries. Recently, even in Kerala, Netten, a very health hazardous producing long-acting contraceptive, has been used in hundreds of female volunteers to test the effectiveness of these long-acting contraceptives. Amniocentesis is now widely used to determine the sex before delivery, and female fetuses are specifically aborted. A recent study conducted in Bombay has shown that out of the 8,000 sex tests that were done before delivery, 7,999 female fetuses were aborted.
Kerala has a coastline of 600 kilometers and a traditional fishing community of 800,000 men and women. In their struggle for survival, they are exploited by middlemen and moneylenders, and no less than 92% of them live beneath the poverty line in congested and unhygienic areas. The men's work is to catch the fish, while the women market the catch. And the children? They just have to look after themselves. In the 50s, large-scale mechanized fishing was introduced by the government and a few international development agencies. While this brought huge profits to the big fishing companies, traditional fishermen over the years saw their catch reduced by some 50%. This attack on their very livelihood inspired traditional fishermen and women to organize and fight for survival. With the help of local organizations, the women later also took up the issues which affected them most. This is one such organization in the south of Kerala, with a number of devoted social workers who have been active among the traditional fishing communities for many years. Mrs. Nalini Nayak is one of them.
Women have to walk very long distances to go to market to sell fish. They carry this fish on their heads, and they had never been permitted to travel on public transport, as they're supposed to be unclean. Fish is supposed to be smelly, and it's supposed to be unhygienic to carry fish on public transport. So because women are away from home for so long and have this heavy burden to carry, they decided to fight for their right to go on public transport, as all other types of vendors are allowed to go on public transport. So it took them 2 years of a massive struggle in the district to finally have the government to talk with them. Finally, the government said that they would provide for them special buses to go to the market, but not allow them to travel on their public vehicles. The women were forced to accept this in a way of compromise instead of losing the struggle altogether. Finally, with the coming of the Fisheries Corporation, the women have been able now to have their own buses almost all over the state.
When a man is at sea, it is believed that he will be guarded by the sea goddess if his wife is chaste. It is also said that an unfaithful woman will be attacked by evil spirits. Some months ago, a young woman was found dead in the fishing village.
In the morning, I heard the shrill sound of a boy crying out. I ran to this spot and found the dead body of a girl lying upside down. Many came running, and there was a general whisper that she was struck to death by some evil spirits. I could immediately recognize the dead body. It was Baby, who lived in this house with her husband, Abraham.
Rumors said Abraham's main motivation to marry was the dowry promised by Baby's mother. With it, he built a better home, which soon turned out to be a prison for Baby. She suffered more and more abuse until her lonely death. Baby's mother remembers.
From the very beginning of their marriage, my daughter used to get beaten up by her husband for silly reasons. When I went to visit them 1 month after the wedding, I found her weeping in the kitchen. "What's the matter, my little girl?" I asked. Instead of answering, she asked me, "What's the use of telling you my stories, Mother? This is my fate. I have to bear it myself." Even I, in the beginning, believed the story of evil spirits. But I had doubts. I didn't announce it in public. The woman who bathed the dead body before burial told us in secret that she saw definite marks of torture on the girl's neck and waist. Hearing this, we could confirm that baby was beaten to death, and that the story of evil spirits was only one cooked up by her husband to cover up the murder.
Evil spirit struck this girl. Evil spirit struck her death. Evil Badha caught baby. Evil Madan took her soul.
No, no, no. Evil Badha didn't strike her. Evil Madan didn't take her. But she is dead. And who killed her?
The Coastal Women's Union Secretary, Mrs. Mercy Alexander, started an investigation into the circumstances of baby's death.
2 days after this incident, I went to the village and talked to the dead girl's mother and women in the neighborhood. They told me they all secretly believed this to be a murder, but they were scared to say it in public. I took them into confidence and told them our organization would support them. During an open discussion, they all told that they themselves had been facing such atrocities almost every night. So, we unanimously decided to take up this case and fight for it as an example. All women joined, and suddenly this case took on a bigger dimension. It gained a feministic perspective. When the women became so organized, the political parties had to come into the picture. They couldn't stay away for fear of losing women's votes. Finally, baby's body was exhumed 2 weeks after the burial. On that day, we filled the church compound and cemetery with women who prevented men from entering the area. The post-mortem report clearly proved it was a murder. I went and stayed at that house where her husband killed my daughter. I had claims to that house because he built it with the dowry money I gave him. I gave him the dowry to look after my girl, not kill her. So I asked him to give back the dowry. Then one night he came with 5 others and beat me black and blue. They tore off my clothes. I had to bear the torture. My neighbors heard my cries and came to help me. Otherwise, I would have been murdered, just like my daughter. The case is now in court. It will take its own course. There is even a possibility that the murderers may escape. Still, I think this is a case of great success on our part as women. Since they know that women are strongly organized, husbands are really scared to beat up their wives.
A legendary leftist political leader, Mrs. Gowrie is currently a Kerala state cabinet minister. She addresses a women's meeting.
I have noted with distress that we are passing through a period, that the tendencies to exploit women are growing day by day, and I see it as an exploitation within the general exploitation. Those who are exploited most, they will be the ones who can sacrifice most, and thus sacrificing, they will be the ones who will stand in the forefront of the struggle. Therefore, I think women will be the front-line leaders in any struggle against exploitation and injustice, if we can create an awareness in them.
The awareness among Indian women of their oppressed situation is gradually growing. But their struggle for change still has a long way to go.